What's going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, and today we are going to be going over Sir Nicholas, the amazing Void Legendary Champion. As we can see, he's a legendary HP base from the Sacred Order faction, and let's just look at this guy. He's not the oldest legendary in the game, definitely one of the oldest. He was in one of the first fusions ever for this game, and looks great. And let's get straight into his abilities, what he can do, and see if this guy can make your account better, and the answer is probably going to be yes, so let's get right into it. Alright, so very quickly going over his abilities, we have an A1 Boreal Blade, attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of pleasing, a freeze debuff for one turn. This debuff cannot be resisted. What does that mean? No accuracy needed, so really strong right off the bat with this A1, and he has a really cool animation when he's going to crit, which we will see right here. He does a spin. If he's not going to crit, he is not going to spin. That's a separate story. So let's get straight into the A2 ability, Polar Protection. This is a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemy, places a shield buff on all allies for 2 turns. The value of the shield is equal to 30% of the damage inflicted. So high possibility, and this is kind of why you want to build them a certain way, but I will get into the build later on. So let's use this A2 and see what we can do here. So really cool ability, really hard hitting ability, which is nice to see from an AoE. Now we have this A3 ability called Goodwill, places an unkillable buff and a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. This is a 4-turn cooldown, and as we already saw, the Polar Protection is a 3-turn cooldown. Now this guy is fully booked, and I'm actually not going to get into it now. I will wait until we get into the gear overview to kind of go over the synergy of these skills and why. Unfortunately, this is the champion whose AI prioritizes the A2 over the A3, which can make things a little bit more difficult depending on what type of content you are looking to do. Alright guys, so now that I showed you the animations, let's go over the skill in more detail like I was talking about just earlier. So the A2 starts out on a 4-turn cooldown, and the A3 starts out on a 6-turn cooldown. Once fully booked, this goes to 4, and the A2 goes to 3. The problem with a 3-turn cooldown and a 4-turn cooldown is they are going to overlap, and he always prioritizes the shield, unfortunately. So every 3 turns he's going to use this shield instead of the unkillable when they're both up at the same time, and it's going to cause lots of problems if you're looking to make an unkillable clan boss team and pretty much things like that, even in dungeons, although dungeons not so much since the shield is actually very strong. We're going to show you that a little bit further on into the video. So what you could do if you got lucky, and this is a big if here, get 2 books into Goodwill and get 0 books into the last decrease cooldown of the shield. This is like the dream scenario for you, where they're both on a 4-turn cooldown. Once you cycle them once, they will always stay on par with how you have them lined up. So that is the unfortunate synergy of the A2 and the A3. Now the A2 is very strong, but as mentioned, Clan Boss is a very appealing place to use someone like a Sir Nicholas. However, if it's not booked properly, you will have to manual it, and honestly, nobody wants to manual every single day on all of your Clan Boss keys. So that's what you can do here. Let's get into how I geared this champion. I gave him damage. I highly recommend, regardless of what content you're doing, you are building this guy for damage. Now, he is a HP and kind of like a support legendary. However, all of his support comes from the damage he deals. The A2 is way too strong to ignore. If you're not running 100% crit rate on this champion, there is literally no point in having him. While the unkillable and continuous heal is very strong, you just get way too much damage out of this guy, and the shield is way too big in all content, which I'll show you in a moment, for you to neglect crit rate. Obviously crit damage helps, and what makes this champion so good is all of his multipliers are based off of HP. HP is a very strong defensive stat. Defense down will not affect this champion, attack down won't affect this champion, so unless you're decreasing Sir Nicholas's overall health, it doesn't really matter what's going to happen. As we can see here for stats, I'm running 89,000 health, 2,200 attack, doesn't matter, 2,200 defense, 189 speed, 106 crit, 263 crit damage, and the rest of the stats do not matter. So the gear sets I'm using is obviously Savage, as well as an Immortal set, And for masteries, we are using the support tree and the offense tree with Helm Smasher. I highly recommend running Helm Smasher in this guy because the extra value you will get for the shield is actually incredible. With all of that being said, let's take a run through every single dungeon to show you how valuable this guy is. Now, one thing you can do, and someone actually mentioned this to me, why don't you use him to solo the dragon? This isn't really an optimal champion to solo, to 2-man, 3-man, any kind of dungeon. That's just not really what he's built for. I guess you can do it as like a showcase, but honestly, no one's going to be using him that way. You can use someone like a Torture Helm that's an epic to solo the dragon, or you can use the King who's bad out to solo the dragon much quicker than this champion is going to do it on solo. So highly recommend staying away from any solo dragon runs or 1 or 2 manning with food, because it's just not efficient and you really don't want to waste this champion with such a, I don't know, kind of flashy team like that. So the first place we're going to test this champion out is going to be Spider 20. Now I'm using Bad Owl, Ghostborn, Septimus, Royal Guard, and finally Sir Nicholas. Now, one huge thing Sir Nicholas is going to bring to your team is if you're mid-game, end-game, sometimes your damage-dealing champions do not do enough damage to actually one-shot the spider, regardless of how many bonus damage amplifying champions you have like Battle or Griptuck, or if you're running someone like a Dracomorph, Tyrell, they get resisted on that defense down, your run is pretty much over. What Sir Nicholas adds to this team, you're going to be amazed when you see it. Some of you probably have seen it already, but what he adds is the ability to let the spider get a chance to go. If you don't have enough damage, let your champion safely cycle all the way through so you can finally finish off this Spider 20 dungeon boss, and it's just going to be a lot better for you. So let's get right into this run so I can show you the true power of Sir Nicholas. We're going to take this to 1x speed. We have Bad Owl going first, followed by our Ghostborn. And now look at this. Who is killing any of these champions through this type of shield? Now this team specifically isn't speed tuned. You can speed tune this so the shield is always active on these champions. Literally his A3 doesn't matter at all, which is that unkillable and continuous heal. All you need is this shield, and obviously you can see it does scale extremely well with all of these different targets here, plus adding some damage to them. Now you definitely don't need as much damage as I showed you. I definitely showed you very high quality gear, but 100% crit rate, Helm Smasher, you're going to have no problem in the Spider 20 dungeon. So let's finish this off here. We have our first enemy max health going. Now we have our second going here, and as we can see, we were just short of killing the spider. Now, in any other situation, you would be panicking, saying, what do I do next? My champions are in danger now. Reduced turn meter, getting slept, so on and so forth. But Sir Nicholas, as I said, brings so much to the team here. He's going to use that unkillable buff next. Since he isn't speed tuned, this helps me out personally a lot, just in case any of my champions that are kind of, you can see the shield is already off of them. If they're in trouble, they're going to be fine. So Bad Owl is red affinited, so he's going to take a majority of that threat, but he does have the continuous heal, and he just cleared, reapplied all the poisons to everybody, and he's going to die here, but we really don't care. All we need is Royal Guard to go a second time to clean up this entire matchup here. Now we're going to cycle through again, and there we see that massive shield coming in. And pretty much all we're waiting for now is takedown from the Royal Guard to finish out this match. Obviously this is appearing to be very slow. I am on 1x speed to kind of walk you through how strong this guy is, and this is going to be 100% success rate for this dungeon. As we can see here, this isn't speed tuned, and it's always going to work. If you speed tune it, it's going to be even faster, even more flawless. So he's a very strong champion, and if you can get your hands on him, definitely do that. Now the question remains, how well is he going to do in all of the other dungeons? Spider is nice. Some people have Spider pretty much down. What happens if you go into somewhere like the Ice Golem? So let's take a look at our Ice Golem run here using Sir Nicholas as the leader. And we'll just throw this in 2x speed. Watch the synergy happen for ourselves here. So we got that A2 almost one-shotting everybody, followed by the Royal Guard's takedown. And if I am correct, yes, Dracomorph is going to defense down on weaken once again. And this is the wave that can be problematic because they're going to put this reflect damage buff, and Santa would have one-shot himself had he not used that A3 beforehand, giving him that unkillable buff. As we can see, even in 5-man content, we are really looking strong as far as how big the shield is. It can really help you survive in pretty much all scenarios, and even on one target as we just saw here, that AoE did nothing to this team, even with Santa's shield simply hitting the Ice Golem. So this is absolutely huge for progression. This is definitely going to be a very consistent team going forward, and you're not really going to have to worry about much. So there you would say, what if I just got one shot? He has that unkillable debuff. As we can see, Dracomorph would have died, Lydia would have died. So we have all of these really cool things happening here, and as we just saw it, 1 minute and 6 seconds with Sir Nicholas with no speed tuning on this team at all. So this guy isn't just a one trick for the spider. Ice Golem, everything works just as well there, and we are going to try the other dungeons just to see how much you can add to your account as a whole instead of in these niche areas. Alright, so here we are in the Dragon 20 run. We are using pretty much the same team as, actually the exact same team as the Ice Golem, and once again, just look at how massive that shield is. Even though they didn't get a chance to go, if you have slower champions than I do, obviously different champions than I do, he is going to increase that survivability to where he's using the shield on the first wave, and then he's going to go to the second wave where he's going to have an opportunity to use that unkillable buff on everybody, which is really going to help out everyone going forward, making sure they survive as long as they need to. And Dragon is kind of an easy dungeon here. You can really use any 4 champions with Sir Nicholas to your success, since he can in fact solo this, even though it would be extremely slow. So what I'm more interested in showing you guys is what you can actually do in the Fire Knight 20 dungeon, because that's definitely a struggle for a lot of players, and while it may not be the fastest run, it can definitely be consistent with the champion like Sir Nicholas. Alright guys, so here we are in Fire Knight Stage 20. We have Double Cold Heart, Dracomorph, Sir Nicholas, and Lysandra. Obviously I'm using very strong champions here. We do have a Cold Heart in Relentless gear, so that's a factor. I'm not sure if my second Cold Heart is in fact geared, and she might die here because of that. We will see where the aggro is actually aimed at. We're really worried about, okay, we do have the shield, so that's the good news, but we're actually worried about the guy who just died there, which is Errol. So this is looking out to be a rather clean run so far. We have an A1 user. Let's see if the Heartseeker goes straight into the shield or not. We do have his aura, which I know I didn't mention before, but it is HP to everyone in all battles, I'm pretty sure. So this is a rather small shield. It did hit the Fire Knight shield, so there wasn't a lot of benefit from that. It probably would have been enough to survive an AoE with that small shield, but let's see what ability he's going to use next. Okay, so this shield is much bigger now. It's on the actual Fire Knight himself, and since the second Cold Heart to the right of the screen isn't critting, that's kind of my indicator as far as why this isn't working out perfect. So as we can see already, we've just done every single dungeon in under a minute. Now the spider run was slow, we did have that in 1x speed, but the fact that Ice Golem, Dragon, and Fire Knight 20 just happened in around a minute is pretty impressive. Granted, I do have good champions supporting that, but like I said, there are many champions in this game that do exactly what all these other champions do. Dracomorph is probably the exception, but you can replace that with a defense down champion, a weakened champion like Seer, any kind of combination you want, and while you may not get times that are 60 seconds, it's probably going to be a little bit longer, closer to 90, but still that's very consistent for having one champion do so much and offer you so much there. So now the next place to talk about is going to be Faction Wars. Based on what we just saw in dungeons, Faction Wars and the Doom Tower can definitely be grouped together. This guy's going to be placing a massive shield on you. He has been the key for me since before Faction Wars were nerfed, even the first time, where I got 63 stars. It's one of the factions I was most proud of, that I ended up actually getting it done before any nerfs happened. After the nerfs, I kind of backed off of Faction Wars, didn't really care about it, because once something's nerfed, you kind of lose the competitive edge as to really pushing for it, because it wasn't as much of a challenge as it was for some other players. But he is going to be, I can't tell you how big if you don't have him already. In Faction Wars, he will get you all the way through stage 21 very easily with minimal gear on your other supporting champion. So now that we went over that, the next place we want to talk about is actually the arena. Now unfortunately I'm very low in the arena here, and all of these pages are pretty much bot pages. And when we say bot pages, it's just newer players, but to be honest with you, even if I was at 4,700, 4,800 points, the teams there aren't very impressive either. I would have to be somewhere in platinum among the higher ranks here to really test how well this champion is going to be. But just in case you're curious, let's find any random team here with 2 champions and just go ahead, start this off and hit auto. And he's just going to one-shot everybody without any type of defense down. Once again, I do have very strong gear, so you're probably going to be using 4 champions if you want to use them in the future. But like I said already, this guy does so much damage, and it's actually funny, and I do want to give a shout out to most new players won't know this name, older players definitely will. His name was Habits. He was in the Gallifrey clan cluster when they were a competitive clan, and he had a Santa build that I'm still in awe about today. It was using a stalwart gear set, high damage, and he was a very, very strong player. It was very sad when he decided to leave the game, but that's what first got me so interested in this champion. He used him with a crazy team with like Norog, Santa, and other damage reduction champions, and Santa was just absolutely destroying all of these teams trying to compete with him because the speed meta wasn't as popular back then. If you went first, it didn't necessarily mean you won because of teams like Habits had and other players as well who didn't make teams like that. But Santa can be such a vital role in the arena if you build him with the right gear. I'm not sure how well the stalwart set will work as far as arena now, but as we can see here, he does so much damage, and it's really easy to scale him with health being that main source of his damage multiplier. So he can definitely be an absolute monster in the arena. Once again, if you're not building this guy with 100% crit rate, there's no point in having this champion. Now, the final thing to talk about can be clan boss. We briefly mentioned that it has to do with how many books you have, and I have honestly so many videos on YouTube already about using Sir Nicholas, Tower, and other champions in the clan boss, how to use it to your success. So I'm not going to talk about it pretty much at all in this video since I have whole separate videos dedicated to Sir Nicholas. One thing I do want to show you guys is something rather special. So this is what I wanted to show you that was rather unique that I was able to do a bit ago. And as we can see from the date, I believe it says 8/3/2020, so 4 months ago is when this happened. And you can actually 4 champion a 1 key Ultra Nightmare. Obviously it has to be void. I did do this on manual to be as efficient as possible since this was fully booked at the time. But as we can see, it is possible to use 2 Sir Nicholas, 1 Dragomorph, and the Seeker to get a 1 key out of Ultra Nightmare, which is 4 champions. So this was a lot of fun to make, and obviously no one's going to replicate this, but there's so many options as far as Sir Nicholas clan boss teams, like I said before. So if you're interested, scroll through my clan boss guide videos and you will definitely find quite a few where you can look up what to do with Sir Nicholas in the clan boss. Alright guys, that is it for my video today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you like this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in the next upload.